Welcome everyone for City on Hill Surf Coast. I'm Louis and you're watching Surf Coast Cafe. A time for us to meet and get to know those in our church family. And today we are joined by Tim. If you are out early on the water, you'll see Tim carving the waves. And if you're early into our church, you will have seen him setting up chairs. Welcome, Tim. How you going?
Yeah, good. Good. There you go. Never had an intro before, so there you go.
Well, you're famous now, mate.
Yeah.
Did you get out for a surf today?
No, I just did the walk on the beach today. So I was the surf's been pretty rubbish the last couple of days. So yeah,
that's not like Bell's weather at all.
Most days I'll find something to do. So there's always something to do early in the mornings. I don't like staying in bed, so it's much easier to get up and get out and see something to start the day.
What time's a normal wake up for you?
Well, I pretty much always wake up before sunlight. So I don't know, depending on time of year. So normally, if the surf's good, I'll be at the beach probably 15 to 20 minutes before the sun's up or before it gets light. So I'll sort of suit up in the dark, watch it in the dark, and then paddle out in the dark. And so I'm in the water for first light type of thing. So yeah, that way you always get 2 or 3 waves before it starts. Even if it gets crowded, you've had a little bit of solitude. It feels all right. So yeah.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah. No, so it's a nice way to start the day. So.
And is it always surfing, or do you will you ever secretly branch out to a stand-up paddleboard or a bodyboard?
I do have I'm a closet stand-up paddleboarder, so I do have an inflatable one. So if I think the surf's going to be really tiny, then I'll take that down and then just pump it up, and then I'll just go for a paddle from Bells to Jarraside or down that way and do that sort of stuff. I haven't done that. Well, that's normally a summer thing, but it's been too cold this summer to worry about doing much of that sort of stuff. So yeah. But now the kids are starting to surf as well. So if the surf's too small for me, then the kids are now doing before. They've done a few before school surfs and stuff like that now. So they're doing that. So I can do that now instead.
That's parenting wins, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is pretty good. So I can't wait till they're a bit older and they can come out with me and stuff like that. It'd be good.
That's amazing. Yeah, they can drive the car.
Yeah, well, that's a plan. They're learners. I'll just be driving me up and down the coast.
Oh, that's good. Well, we're in the virtual Surf Coast Cafe. If we were in a real cafe, what would you normally be ordering?
I'd just get a flat white, but it depends on how many I've had for the day. Usually I'm a 1 coffee a day person, and if work's really bad, I'll have 2. But yeah, I'll sort of limit it to one normally. So,
that's good. And you mentioned work. What is a normal work week look like for you? I mean, what does life look like for you generally?
I have an addiction, so I'm very bad at planning things around events. I plan around wind, tide, swell, and then I usually try to fit everything else around that. So So my old boss used to know that if I wasn't at work by about 11 o'clock, then he knew that the surf was good, and then I'd probably end up working from home that day. So I'm quite flexible in how I arrange things. So I don't really keep much routine. So it's which is probably much to the disgust of most of the people I have to work with, or Rachel, or that sort of stuff. But yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And when you are working, what sort of stuff are you doing?
So I'm an engineer with Ford. So now I'm in vehicle dynamics. So which I know is all suspensions, tires, all that sort of stuff. But my role is not the fun stuff at the moment. Mine's just more organisation of teams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So prior to that, I guess last year, we had a big change at work where they made our whole area redundant. So I used to be a powertrain expert. So I used to do diesel engine testing and all that. So I'd be traveling heaps around the world doing testing in Europe and US and all that sort of stuff. But that all sort of came to a halt last year, and I got moved into another area. So now I've gone from being like an expert in something to like having to start at the very bottom and learn a whole new system again. And just it sort of feels like being a graduate again, which is a bit weird, but yeah. So
do you enjoy that dynamic?
Go from that. Yes and no. Like I think I really enjoyed when I was like doing the technical expert. I was doing lots of training of young people. Like so, I'd get like graduates into the team, and I'd be like training them how to do stuff, and we'd be doing all that. And I actually really enjoyed all that. But so now, I'm sort of flipped 180 degrees, where now I'm the one asking all the dumb questions and doing all that sort of stuff. So it's sort of been. In some ways, I don't know. It's quite a humbling thing to do. Like, sort of a weird way to sort of transition. So, but it's been interesting. So, yeah.
And how did you go with? Everything at the moment. You've obviously been able to keep your job. Has that sort of rocked your sort of work environment at all, or been okay?
So our work's been. Because we can do most of our work remotely anyway. So as soon as it sort of started coming out, I think we've been working from home for nearly a month now. So I was just like, bang, work from home, that's it. And then I think there's all the mechanics have to be at work. So we sort of are on a roster that we can go into work. So if I need to get the mechanics to do some work and I need to organise parts for them, I'm allocated a couple of days here and there to be able to go in and do that sort of stuff. But yeah, so it hasn't really. I know it has been different. There's probably a lot more WebEx meetings and stuff. There's no more just sort of sticking your head up and talking to the person in the next cubicle. So you sort of got to be a bit more, sort of been a bit of a change like that. So, but yeah, we can get everything we need done. So, and it's one of those times where you go, it's nice being part of a big global company where you go, okay, well, they're sort of riding through it and do all right. So, yeah. And Ford's an interesting one because we went through the global financial crisis without claiming bankruptcy. And one of the reasons is they're still a family-owned company. So even though they're on the stock exchange, the way that they've structured the company is it's still family-run, and still owned by the Ford family. So they're quite different to a lot of the other big manufacturers in that. So when they came out, I think with all this stuff that's going on, they basically sent out a big thing saying, we've just been through a big restructure in the last year, so we're going to try and get through this with no job losses. And the other thing they've been doing is they've been donating a lot of the time. I think some of the teams over there have been inventing new respirators, and I think Ford's making 50,000 respirators for the US and out of old car parts that they've got and other bits and pieces, and doing that as just a volunteer thing. So they're not actually just sort of getting them out there and stuff. So, and I think Ford Australia is making face shields or something now. So from some of their places, so I think they're going to do 40 or 50,000 face shields for the nurses and doctors and stuff as a volunteer thing, stuff like that. So yeah, so so it's sort of good being in a company like that. So yeah,
that's really encouraging. That's really cool to sort of know that's happening in the world too. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now tell us a little bit about your life growing up. Have you always been someone that's lived on the surf coast, or what's that story look like?
No. So, my dad was a minister. So he grew up mum and dad came from Europe, when they were kids, and they both grew up in Tasmania, as immigrants. And dad, I think when he was an ag scientist, and I think at the time the Reformed Church was on a big drive for ministers, and he was one of the people tapped on the shoulder. So he ended up coming to Geelong and studying at the Reformed Theological College.
Yeah, great.
And so I was actually born in Geelong when they were when he was studying. So then I guess Dad's first church was in Dandenong, so East Melbourne. And then I think I was about 9, and Dad got a call to Western Australia, and so I grew up pretty much in Western Australia till went to high school and university and everything over there. I think it was about 9 when we left. And
was that inland or on the coast?
No, it was probably, I don't know if you know much of WA, but you got Fremantle, and if you sort of drove about half an hour east, you would have got to our house,
Yeah.
sort of
Okay.
thing. So we were sort of quite inland. We weren't on the coast or anything like that. And yeah, so I mean, I started pretty late in life. I was about 16 or 17 when we all started getting cars and licenses and all that sort of stuff. And then I moved over here. So I was in 2000. Well, yeah, end of 2001. I quit uni because I hated it, and I was going to take a year off, and then someone I knew who worked at Ford rang me up and said, "Oh, you know that work experience thing? Do you want to come over and do that?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And my supervisor at the time had forgotten to put his paperwork in, so he's in a mad rush trying to find someone to be his work experience student for the year. And so he gave me a 5-minute phone interview, and I left the next week. So,
Wow.
yeah, and drove across the country. It was meant to be for 1 year, and then I just never left. So, and I've
How long has that
been with
been
Ford.
now?
So I've been with Ford 18 and a half years or something now.
Wow.
So I started when I was just over, when I was about 20, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah. So it's been sort of one of those spur of the moment random things that you had no control in. You sort of go, "Oh, I'll do it," and yeah, that's where it ended up. So I sort of lived in Geelong for a year or two, and then because one of the draw cards working over here was like, I'm like, yeah, Bells, that's like, I'll live there, that's sweet. So that was when you could get, that was back 20 years ago, you get from Geelong to Bells in like about 20 minutes. So it was pretty
no
close.
traffic lights.
Yeah, and then I did move. So when I had a couple of mates at work, and we ended up getting a house here in Janja, and so we lived down here for a couple of years and stuff. And then I started going out with Rachel, and we got married. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then we sort of looking for houses and stuff like that. And I went, oh, I can live in Geelong. I can do that. Yeah, okay. So I ended up moving back to Geelong, and then it slowly just was like getting harder and harder to live there. So finally convinced her to move back. So yeah, no, it's good. It's a very nice place to live here. So,
yeah, absolutely. And so tell us about, so that's, I didn't know that about you, that your dad was a reform minister. In my experience, you often hear of the being a PK or a pastor's kid, that has no guarantees that, that you what was that like for you? Was there a moment where, did you have a rebellious phase, or, what was that like growing up?
I think pretty much as I got to high school, I was just like, didn't really want to have much to do with church. Like I was always involved in like the church stuff because we had to go. Like if you lived at home, you had to go to church. That was the rule. And then, we just did something like we'd find another church to go to somewhere else, like down near where we were surfing. So we could go to church, but not be at the one that Dad was preaching at or whatever. But like, so we're doing, we sort of like, I didn't really think much of church a lot for, I don't know, even especially through uni and all that sort of stuff. And it's probably only when I came to Geelong that I think I was about 20, just sort of like, I'd been here for about a year, and then I was like, actually, no, I think there's something in this. And I think there's something in me always as well. Like I've never quite been able to, like, I don't know, the whole evolution thing as well. Like I think that for me as like an engineer and everything else, like I just see design and beauty in like everything around us. And I think that was something that I could never really put my hand on. Like, how does this all work without God? I think that was probably one of the things that made me start questioning things a bit more and all the rest of it. So,
yeah, that's amazing. And so you reckon to probably about 20, you thought, oh, I'll take it seriously, or is that just a path of investigation again?
Well, I'd sort of stopped going to church for like when I moved over here, and then it was just like families that we were hanging out with. Like, you being a poor student, you're usually, finding dinners for free everywhere. And like, it was usually ex-church families that, sort of bring you in and just, slowly sort of getting dragged back into churches like here and there. And, little things you'd hear, you'd be like, oh, maybe I should think about this a bit more or whatever. So, So I think it was just a very slow process of getting dragged back in.
That's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful evidence that God has never completely got you out of his grasp, does he? he's
No,
always got you.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, thinking through, being a Christian, and I mean, this time that we're in now, I mean, what difference does like Jesus make to your life, and this season that we're in?
I don't know. I think for us, like, especially after doing all the Revelation stuff, I think I said the other day in GC, it's like, this is almost the best preparation doing that Revelation series, because the crux of it all is that all this bad stuff's happening, but God's in control. And I think that's probably the thing we can rest in, is we go, okay, well, the world's falling apart and melting down, but God's in control still. And, I think that's probably been looking at all this. And I think it's probably hard for us as well, because I don't think, like, if you've kept your job and you're doing all, you have a nice place to live, we're so removed from the reality of what's going on. I think part of me goes, yeah, God's in control, but I think as well, like with everything that's going on at the moment, I think a lot of us are not really seeing the stuff that's actually happening in the world. Like, you see a bit on the news, but you just don't. I know we're almost separated from the reality of a lot of this stuff as well. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's and I guess from my point, I think when looking at all this stuff going on at the moment, I go, it's hard to work out what we can do as Christians now. Like, like what are we, you want to go help someone, but you're like, well, I'm not even really meant to go down there. Like, I'll help Louie move house. Oh, I can't really do that. Like, how do we, how do we do all that sort of stuff? Like, like it sort of changed the way that we do stuff and things like that, which is sort of challenging, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's absolutely it's an interesting time. Like, what does it look like to be sharing with your friends and your mates, the difference Jesus does make. When you, it's I guess that maybe it's a season of real intentionality, I guess, because we're not having passing conversations anymore. Hey, I got one other question. We know you're working at home. You got 3 kids there, Heidi, Ava, and Sam. What top tips do you have for other parents as they are working from home as well?
I don't know. I'm pretty lucky because, like I've said, I've been working from home for years. Like, so my kids are used to it. So I think when Rachel had the girl, or she just had Sam, so she stayed at home I think for a year after Sam, and then she had to go back 1 day a week to like keep her accreditation in the health thing. So I went to my boss and said, well, I'm going to go 4 days a week because otherwise Rach can't ever go back to work type thing. And my boss goes, no, we can't afford you to do that. How about you work from home? I'm like, oh, if you're cool with that, then I'm happy to do it. So ever since the kids have been like, I think the girls were about they would have been 3 and Sam 1, and I worked at home 1 day a week with them, and that was just part of their life. So they've been very good kids at just keeping themselves busy. So I think I'm pretty lucky in that. But I don't know. I mean, no matter how good they are, you're always going to have bad days. But one of the things I've always just done is, like, on those days, I've always tried to take at least a little bit of time out of my day, and then I catch up later. Like, so I'd do, an hour or something with them. I'll take, like, even now I'll take them for a surf during the day, and then I'll just make up that extra hour or two, like, at night when they go to bed. So I'll do a few extra hours at night and do that sort of thing. So, but as I said, they're pretty good at keeping themselves busy. Like the other day, Heidi's got a book on algebra, and she's just decided she's going to learn algebra these holidays. So she's,
as you do.
and they've been teaching themselves piano and all that sort of stuff. So I know it's pretty cool when you see kids just like they're almost seeing this. Oh, I've got some time. I'll just do this and learn that. So yeah.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. I think that's really still good advice. Like, even just saying there are going to be bad days and just accepting that. I mean, even sometimes we can put these unhealthy expectations on ourselves, can't we? That we got to be parents all the time when I think, we've got God's grace and we can apply that to ourselves and our kids too, can't we?
Yeah. I think it's going to be a bit more interesting when they're doing schoolwork and see how that goes. That might be a different dynamic, so that we've never done before. So that'll be. I was talking to one of my friends today, and he said his friend was a teacher and said, if they get 2 or 3 hours of good work in the day, then that's pretty good. We'll just remember that. I'm like, oh, that's good to know. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Oh, Tim, well, thanks so much for taking the time and sharing a little bit of your life with us and a little bit of your Jesus story and all that sort of stuff. I'm really encouraged by you and all that's happening. And, I hope that our church family is as well. And, these are some questions that we can follow on and continue with. Why don't I pray for you? Yeah. And, I think that'd be really great. I'll pray.
Yeah.
Our dearest Father, I thank you so much for my brother Tim and just the way that you've been at work in his whole life. Thank you that you've given him the gift of salvation. Thank you for his love for Jesus and the way that, you've given him a mind to see beauty and design and everything in this world. Would you continue to bless him in this season with ongoing work and a household where the kids are going well. And would you bless him as a father and as a husband as he seeks to, just lead in that place and, lay down his life so that his wife and kids would flourish in this time. I give you thanks for him. Would he know your love deeper and more profound more every day? In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Oh, that's good.
Cool.
Thanks, Tim.
No worries. Cheers.